everyone, it's Eric from Mad 8 Productions, and today we're going to be taking a look at an Atari 2600 game. It's an arcade game that was released in 1981, and then it was ported to the Atari 2600 in 1982. We're going to be taking a look at Gorf. Gorf. Gorf! Alright, so here's an up-close and personal look at Gorf for the Atari Video Computer System, otherwise known as the Atari 2600. And Sears Video Arcade. Sears actually had a version of the Atari 2600. It was the same console, it was just labeled Sears Video Arcade. Anyways, this home port was actually developed by CBS Video Games, and that is the same CBS as the TV network. They did have a video game division back in the early 80s, and it shut down like a lot of other video game developers in 1983. But they did kick out a couple of games, and this was one of them, a home port of Gorf. So I do have this game complete in box. Let's take a look at the back here. And Gorf is kind of an interesting game. It's a vertical shooter, stationary shooter like a lot of other games, but it's mission based. It's the arcade game actually has 5 missions. Unfortunately, the home version only has 4 of them. But there's Astro Battles, which is the first one that you play, and it's basically Space Invaders. And then there's Laser Attack, which is another interesting one where this ship shoots this big-ass laser down at you and you gotta dodge these kamikaze ships. And then normally there's also another mode called Galaxian, and it's Galaxian basically. It's a little Galaxian level you play, and we'll see that in the arcade version. And then there's Space Warp, which is by far probably my least favorite mission on this game. This is a pain in the ass, Space Warp. And then there's Flagship, where you destroy the flagship. Once you've completed all the missions, you get a new rank, and then it starts over again back from Astro Battles, but slightly more difficult. Things are more sped up. So, your standard arcade game. Let's take a look at what the cartridge looks like. Now, this game here looks just like all the other games that were developed by CBS Video Games. This is what their cartridges look like. So it's got the 4 missions listed. Joystick, ready, go. Right on. So that's the cartridge. And then you also got a cool little instruction manual here. And it's full color, which is pretty cool. This is back during when video games were still kicking ass back in 1982 before the crash in 83. So companies were spending money on things like full color manuals. But it's pretty short. It just kind of describes the different missions, and then it gives you, these are the different ranks you can get. Now, I will say that this is a fairly decent, fun arcade game on the Atari 2600, but it is pretty gimped from its arcade version. So let's take a look at Gorf on the arcade, and then we'll take a look at Gorf on the Atari 2600 and see how it holds up against the arcade game. Let's take a look.
So here's Gorf the arcade game. Now, I don't have a Gorf arcade cabinet, so I'm playing this on a MAME emulator, unfortunately. Here's the first level of Gorf. You can see it's Space Invaders with a little bit of a twist. You've got a shield down there that the aliens kind of slowly work away at shooting, and every time you shoot, the shield disappears for a second. So kind of similar to Space Invaders in that there's a shield there, but it works a little bit differently. You can also shoot the Space Invaders or aliens or whatever's bullets, which is kind of nice. And you've got a UFO that even goes over, and the speed increases. So very similar to Space Invaders. Now this next part here, Laser Attack, you've got these 2 ships that shoot these lasers at you, and then a bunch of kamikaze ships. Now this part's pretty fun. It's difficult though, but it is fun. It's definitely a good challenge. I like Laser Attack. I like this mission quite a bit. And here's the level called Galaxians, and as you can see, it's Galaxians. And this is probably my favorite level out of all of them, I think. And unfortunately, this level is missing from the home port on the 2600, which just sucks because this is tons of fun. Now, something else you may notice there off to the right, like I mentioned earlier, I'm playing this on a MAME emulator. The original arcade cabinet actually had a little light up panel that lit up your rank as you went through the levels. So if you ever find a Gorf arcade cabinet, original one, definitely play it. I don't see them that often at all, but there's nothing like playing it on the original cabinet. So if you see one, play it. And then next we have the Space Warp, and this is probably my least favorite level out of all the levels in Gorf. I have a hard time hitting the ships, I have a hard time avoiding the shots. I get what they were going for. This is the level right before the last level where you fight the big bad boss, so this is like the Space Warp to that level, so I get what they were going for, I don't like it. I don't like this part. I'm not sure what the rules are to this part too, if it ends after you shoot a certain amount of ships or if it's timed. But it definitely seems to carry on the longest for me too out of all the levels. I wish this was the level that was missing on the home ports, but unfortunately this level is there and the Galaxian level is missing. And this is the last level, the flagship, and kind of similar, it has a shield that you have to shoot and eat away at, and then once you do, you have to place a precise shot right in a certain spot in order to defeat it, and that is quite difficult, but also fun. It's a fun challenge. I like this level as well. It's definitely satisfying when you finally do blow up the flagship. And that is a very satisfying 1981 arcade game explosion. And you can see there the little indicator light moved over to the next rank, and then the levels reset and you play through the same set again. Definitely revolutionary for an arcade game in 1981, but let's look at the Atari 2600 port.
Alright, so we'll be playing the Atari 2600 port of Gorf on my trusty Atari 7800 Pro System. And I'll be playing with the Allen 9000 Pro joystick for the Atari 7800 for the ultimate arcade experience. Let's go ahead and fire this up.
So here's the first level of Gorf, and you'll notice some differences right away. There's a lot less invaders on the screen, and also the shield is missing completely. So this is basically just a small game of Space Invaders now without any shield. I mean, this is still fun for the most part, it's just not as fun as the arcade game. And then here's our big-ass laser with the kamikaze ships. And you'll notice there's only one formation of ships instead of two. This is still pretty fun, though, even with just the one formation. I enjoy this a lot more than the first level. And this does put up a decent but fun challenge still. I just wish there was two formations. But you can start to see a running theme here. This game is just not nearly as good as the arcade game. Now here is my least favorite level once again. It skips the Galaxians level, which just sucks that the Galaxians level is not in this game, because that's probably my favorite level. And this level is my least favorite level. And this is even worse. It's just as hard, but you don't get the same effect, because instead of the flying red kind of lines coming at you to indicate that you're warping through space, we just have a blinking red circle in the middle, which is not really that big of a deal. And I still have just as hard a time with this section in the Atari 2600 port as I do the arcade game. Now here's the flagship, and you'll notice once again, no shield. They were not able to do that in the Atari 2600 version, so another limitation and difference in the 2600 version. Now, is Gorf on its own, just as an Atari 2600 game, good? I will say it is pretty decent for an Atari 2600 game. If you don't have any familiarity with the arcade game at all, and you were to just throw this in your Atari 2600, you might have some fun with it if you like games like this. There is some variety there with the different level types. So I would say, yeah, it does hold up on its own as an Atari 2600 game, just not my favorite. I do find that I kind of lose interest with it pretty quickly. I might, play through the levels once or twice, and then just totally lose interest in it. So I'd rather play the arcade game, but unfortunately just don't run into the arcade cabinet anymore, so this will have to do. Anyways, I'm going to play a couple more rounds of this. Thanks for watching my review of Gorf, and if you like what you saw, don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons, and take care. Thanks for checking out my review of Gorf for the Atari 2600. Why don't you let me know what some of your favorite Atari 2600 arcade ports are down in the comments below. And don't forget to hit those like and subscribe buttons. And as always, thanks for watching.